My name is Welly Kustono. I'm the Director of Canadian Education International Indonesia. And if this is the first time that you have heard about this name, we are a not-for-profit foundation mandated by the Embassy of Canada to promote Canadian education in Indonesia. So I'm really glad that we are able to host another of these annual Study in Canada training. And we have all of you joining us this morning wherever you are. I've taken a peek at our registration data, and it seems like we have participation from all across Indonesia, from different schools, representatives, and also Asian representatives as well. So once again, thank you very much for your time this morning, and welcome to the Study in Canada training. So I'm sure everyone probably have heard about the good news just announced last week, I believe, and it's actually viraling now in the social media and in the news. But if you haven't heard, it's great news for Indonesian citizens. If you have already had a Canadian visa in the past 10 years, or if you have a valid US visa, now you can go to Canada maybe for summer holiday just by applying an ETA, an electronic travel authorization. And it speeds up the whole process. It's only by minutes via online, and it's only 7 Canadian dollars. But just an idea for you if you don't have a plan for the summer yet. And hopefully today with the Study in Canada training information that will be shared will provide you with better understanding about the changes of the Canadian education landscape and how we have transformed in the recent years. So without further ado, sit back and relax. And I will, with your permission, I'll just take a couple of seconds to put up my slide and we can begin. All right, everyone. So let's begin. I do have a lot of content to cover, and I only have maybe less than an hour to do so. So I may be relatively quick in going through the slides. But if you have any questions, again, as I said, you can always submit those questions in the chat box, and we'll be happy to go through them. All right, everyone. So I have quick updated information for the Study in Canada training is usually when I will go back to my slides and updating the information and also putting in new information. So I'm pleased to let you know that this is fresh, warm from the kitchen because literally the slides here have only been updated a couple of days ago. So hopefully the information will be very fresh and current and informative and relevant for all of you. So what's new? Canada is still in the top 4. Maybe there are a lot of information out there and you start to wonder whether Canada is still attractive destination for overseas study, whether there are still a lot of international students from around the world, or the question is, how about Indonesian students? What's the number like going to Indonesia? Going to Canada. And I have information on that in the next slide, but I just want to let everyone know very clear right from the beginning that Canada is still in the top 4 most popular overseas destination countries for international students worldwide. Now, the 2024 data is still the most current data that we have at the moment. We are still waiting for the 2025 data. Hopefully will be released in the next couple of months. But based on last year, 2024, based on the 2024 data, there were close to 1 million international students in Canada. Now, we broke the milestone of 1 million students in 2023. And yes, there has been a slight decline in 2024, which is why the number is now less than 1 million. But we are also still in the top 10 for Indonesians to study abroad based on our data in 2023. And this happens to be the peak of the Indonesian student recruitment for Canada as well for us, because 2023 number is our all-time high, and we are approximately at about 1,300 to 1,400 Indonesian students. Yes, the number has been declining in the last couple of years, but I have some really good news to be shared with everyone a little bit later. But let's carry on with some of the information here. Canadian destination is still very much a major destination for post-secondary students. It doesn't mean that it's not attractive for graduate students. If any, one of the transformation that's happening right now is that the Canada seems to be gearing more in attracting talents, especially as well for students at the graduate level. But in terms of number, the fact remains that majority of the international students in Canada, approximately 75%, are post-secondary students. So when we are talking about post-secondary students, we basically it's everything above high school and excluding the graduate level. What about the provinces? Which are the popular provinces among international students? So global statistics shows that approximately close to 50% still look at Ontario, because Ontario is the central province in Canada, where it has the most number of institutions, education institutions there. So naturally, a lot of options for people to choose from. And in Ontario, there are two major cities like Toronto, which is the largest city in Canada, and also Ottawa, which is the capital. Now, around 20% chose British Columbia, and one of the popular city, obviously, is Vancouver, which is the third largest city in Canada. And one of the main reasons of the popularity of British Columbia, apart from the great institutions that they have, is also the mild climate. Yes, Canada can be cold, but we are still a four-season country. So we have summer, like right now, we have fall, we have winter, we have spring. But even during the winter in British Columbia is relatively mild because the overall temperature in BC across the year, when we average it out, is actually not below zero. So the only thing that can happen is because when it's winter, it's not too cold. But if it's in the summer, it's not too hot as well. So when it's average out, it's relatively mild. The third province is Quebec. Canada is a bilingual country, English and French, although majority of the provinces do not require international students to be able to speak French. And in Quebec, even though it's a province where there are a lot of Francophonies live there, but we still have a few universities that are English speaking as well. But generally speaking, when students choose to study in Quebec, there may be motivation for them to learn French as well, at least for a day-to-day conversation. And then we have some rising provinces that are gaining popularity as well, provinces like Alberta, Manitoba, and so on. Now, how about Indonesia? And this is based on very updated data last year, 2025. So quite consistent, except all the provinces are there, except the order. So for Indonesians, majority actually chose British Columbia, close to 60%. So that's very big. Followed by Ontario, around 30%. And then Alberta, about 4%, Quebec, 3%. And then now we start seeing more and more Indonesian students also looking at other provinces like Manitoba and also the Maritimes for the obvious reasons, because lower cost of living and also even the tuition, and yet they still offer very good education quality offered by these public universities at these provinces. So what are the top fields of study for international students in Canada? I think this still remain quite consistent across the years. Canada is very popular for our STEM program, and business, natural, and social sciences are also quite favorites for international students. But I will provide more details about this in my future slides. But let's move on to some data that you are probably interested to know. So this is the graphic that shows the number of study permit holders from Indonesia and when it becomes effective. So generally speaking, by looking at this number, at least we have an estimate of the number of new Indonesian students studying in Canada on a yearly basis. So we have pulled up the data for the past decade from 2015 to 2025, and you can see that we have continued to increase all the way up to 2023, which I've mentioned to you is our all-time record. And we only had a dip in 2020, and I'm sure everyone knows that's COVID. But what's interesting to know is probably everyone is wondering what happens after all the changes in the immigration, especially in the recent years. Is Canada still popular among Indonesian students and among international students worldwide? Now, I'm showing you the Indonesian statistic here. You can see that in 2023 to 2024, there was quite a dip at about 17%. But the good news is, and here is the important part, if you look at the 2025 number, the rate of decline has slowed down. So the graph has flattened in 2025, which is a good sign of hopefully a rebound or turnabout in the following year, in 2026. Now, we don't have the numbers yet, but the major intake for Canada is September. So the embassy is now busy processing study permit application for the fall intake. But hopefully we will have the update later on this year or maybe early next year about how we perform in 2026. But I personally, based on my observation of the past study in Canada fair events and how busy we were, I'm quite optimistic that hopefully the number is going to rebound. And another important observation that I want to share with everyone here is that if you look at how deep we declined in 2020 because of COVID, you still can see that the last 2 years, the dip wasn't nearly close to how we declined in 2020 because of COVID. In other words, there is a very strong foundation in Indonesia, or should I say interest for the Canadian education in Indonesia remains high. And this is definitely good news, not only for us, but hopefully for those of you listening to this as well. Now, the next graph shows the accumulated total of number of study permit holders from Indonesia at the end of each year. Now, this stats, unfortunately, has not been updated yet. The 2025 number is not out yet, hopefully in the next few months. So I will be updating this. However, this is consistent with what I showed you in the previous graph. In fact, we pull it further, and you can see that it's been an uphill increase from 2010 all the way to 2023, and there was a modest decline in 2024. So I suspect there will be still a decline in 2025, but I'm hoping again that the decline is flattening and we will start seeing improvements in the following year, and that will be due to the contribution of everyone involved here, from the schools and also from the agents. So in summary, Canada remains part of the world's top 4 international study destinations, despite all the recent policy tightening and the enrollment declines. And this is very important, something that I want to highlight, because social media is rampant these days, right? We have to be critical with the source and the information that are being shared sometimes in the social media. Yes, there is a recent policy tightening, and yes, there is an enrollment decline, but sometimes the information in the social media is blowing it out of proportion. And what is happening globally, not necessarily identical with what's happening in Indonesia, especially after you have seen the statistics, the facts that I have shared with you earlier. But yes, there has been a change, and that is the key of my message today. And I've also mentioned this in my introduction, that Canada is also going through a transformation. We have, I've started seeing the transformation, and I think it's still happening, where Canada is transforming from a high volume growth destination study to become a more focus on high quality, sustainable overseas study destination. And what do I mean by that? Like, what exactly the applications on that? So let's go through the summary of what has changed since 2024. Yes, there is an introduction of the study permit caps. That's why students now must have PAL or TAL, which is a provincial or territorial attestation letter before you can apply for study permit. Yes, there is now a greater institutional accountability in terms of student recruitment, how they vet the students, how they recruit the students. And yes, there is a higher financial readiness requirements now, both the visa requirement and also for students to get PAL or TAL, they must pay certain amount of deposit to the institutions before they can get the PAL issued, before the LOA will be confirmed, and then they will use both documents to apply for the study permit. So yes, there are higher requirement, but this is basically to ensure that we are looking at serious, genuine students. They are able to finance themselves. Yes, there will be scholarships. Yes, there will be work opportunities available during study to help with the financial and also the experience. But we certainly look at students that are able to support themselves financially, regardless what happened, so their study will not be affected. Our post-graduation work permit is still eligible, but we are now targeting it and aligning it with the labor market, which is actually good news for a lot of students, because then this will allow them to tap into the demand of the labor market and the sectors that are strong. But I'm pleased to let you know that for degree holders that study in Canada, all field of study are eligible for PGWP program. I will talk about that a little bit more later on. So basically, what has changed since 2024 until now, the focus is on the student outcomes. We want to make sure that these genuine, serious students are going to be successful in their study. And hopefully, when there is opportunity for them, and if they are interested to remain in Canada to get more experience, that they will be successful as well. But what has not changed? I think this is the most important part. Because a lot of times, all the media focuses on the immigration issue, and they forget on what's more important, which is the education itself. So I'm pleased to let you know, and you can see this in the news, if you are critically reviewing the content that's being shared, Canada still is a very stable, politically stable country. We have a very strong rule of law. We still offer safe communities, multicultural environment, very inclusive, very welcoming society for international students. Our education system remains world-class, and our institutions are excellent. In fact, one of the great things about Canadian education quality is that the quality is consistent across institutions in Canada. Yes, there are, of course, rankings and highly ranked universities or institutions in some of the rankings that you are probably aware, like Times Higher, ARWU, QS, and so on. But the quality of the programs offered, the quality of the teachings remain consistent and high across Canada and across institutions. And that's one of the reasons why education in Canada is truly excellent. Our credentials are globally recognized. You can find jobs in Canada or in other words, or back in Indonesia, and those Canadian credentials will be widely respected and globally recognized. And another important thing I think about our education system that is very relevant is our career-focused learning and the diverse career opportunities that we offer, along with the access to post-graduation work opportunities. There is still a huge demand for skilled talent, and I will also share a little bit more in my next few slides on the reasons why. But let's discover Canada so we can inform our students about the opportunities of learning in Canada and hopefully to succeed in Canada. So let's start with discovering Canada. Now, I will not go into a geography lesson, but I just want to share that Canada is a massive country because we have the second largest land size in the world. So we are the second largest country in the world in terms of our land size, and it consists of 10 provinces and 3 territories. I think quite a few number of those provinces I've mentioned in my previous slides. They are quite popular among international students and Indonesian students. And Canada is quite unique in the sense that we are actually surrounded by 3 oceans. We have the Pacific, the Arctic, and the Atlantic Ocean. And US is just right under us. So, as I said, our Canadian brand remains that we are a dynamic, diverse, and inclusive place, not only to study, but also to live, to work, and to connect with people from different parts of the world. We continue to be socially inclusive. I've mentioned in many occasions that I'm very proud to inform people that Canada is the first country in the world to adopt multiculturalism as part of the country policy. We respect the human rights, and we always value on providing economic opportunities to all. The Canadian experience, I think these pictures are, don't even stand a chance to actually describe the amazing Canadian experience that your students will encounter when they are in Canada. But as I've said, I've usually told parents and students, you need to go there. And I guarantee I haven't seen anyone, parents or students, come back to me and tell me that they are disappointed after they have gone to Canada, after seeing how beautiful it is, how friendly the people, and how well they do with their study and so on. Now, another brand of Canada that is really exceptional is the entrepreneurial. So Canada is actually, the economy consists of a lot of MSME, so small, medium enterprise. So a lot of startups, a lot of entrepreneurs are playing a major role in the Canadian economy. It doesn't mean that we don't have big corporations. We do, but majority of the players in the economy are actually coming from the MSMEs. And Canada is ranked number 3 in the G20 as the easiest place to start a business. And why is this important? Because we keep talking about opportunities for students during and after study, right? And that can only happen when the economy continues to be robust and that businesses are creating job opportunities. So these are definitely good economic indicator for that. And businesses and educations are working very closely. And that's why 2 of the top 5 university incubators in the world are actually in Canada, and they are at McGill University and also University of Toronto. But it's not only limited with these 2 universities, because a lot of universities are exploring different kind of partnerships with the private sector. Some in form of research, some in form of co-op or placement or internship. Now, these are just quick examples about the research partnerships between the Canadian universities and the private sectors. So our entrepreneurship is also very generally tend to be more high-tech. As you can see, areas like big data analytics, artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, fintech, life science, robotics, clean tech, blockchain, and so on. These are areas that not only students will be able to learn them within the walls of the classrooms, but students will be able to get access to work opportunities during study, whether through the work integrated learning programs or post-study, so upon post-graduation, through the PGWP, post-graduation work permit programs. And they will be able to access this technology sectors as well, which is very big and very important moving forward. So that's a little bit about Canada, but I'm sure everyone here is trying to learn more about the Canadian education system and the institutions. So let's move on about the quality of education that Canada offers. So as I've said earlier, our qualifications are globally respected and we have very strong quality assurance. Why I say that? Because we are widely recognized for our public education system. Majority of our universities, polytechnics, colleges, institutions, education institutions, majority of them are public institutions, about 70 to 80%. And all of them are under the oversight of the provincial governments. So it's not under the federal government, but each provincial government has their interests in overseeing their education system to assure the strong quality. Now, Canadian education has always been very research culture oriented, and that's why we have universities with very strong research. And I will share some information about that as well a little bit later. And Canada remains one of the highest in the world in producing graduates with high employability. I will have statistics to back this claim, so it's not just verbally acknowledged, but you will see what I mean when I show you the slides later on. But let's start with the lower level of education first, which is at the high school level. I'm sure everyone is aware of the PISA 2022 report. This remains the latest PISA reports because PISA is usually done every 4 years. So the next one will be in 2026. So maybe either this year, end of this year, or maybe next year, the new PISA result will be out. But this is the most current one out there. And it's showing the snapshot of students' performance in 3 areas: reading, mathematics, and science, among OECD countries. And as you can see, Canada is actually ranked very high in the OECD. We are actually next to majority of the Asian countries like Singapore, Japan, Korea, and then Estonia, Switzerland, Europe, and then followed by Canada. So Canada has already built our quality even at the foundation level, at the high school level, where our students are prepared academically in the areas of mathematics, readings, and science, all above the OECD average. Now, when we are talking about the globally recognized Canadian credentials, essentially we are talking about degrees and non-degrees here. The degrees will be the PhD, the master's, and the bachelor's, followed by the non-degrees like certificate. Sorry, I should add, there is another one, associate degree. And then, of course, there is the certificates and the diplomas for post-secondary and postgraduate as well. So universities obviously offer all of them, but colleges, polytechnics, they have different areas of focus. Now, I do need to point out that we start seeing the trend, but because this is not happening across all institutions, that's why this slide has not been updated. But we start seeing more and more colleges and polytechnics in Canada now even upscale themselves, elevate them further by starting to offer master degree program. Now, it's still fairly limited to certain institutions only, but we start seeing the trends happening already. So even polytechnics and colleges now start focusing in offering more graduate programs at a master level. But PhD is a different level because college and polytechnics, usually they will focus on more applied approach rather than research. So in summary, what is university in Canada like? So it's very similar to the ones in Indonesia. We offer the bachelor, usually 4 year. Rarely we do 3 years unless student got advanced studying credit transfer. So for IB students, Cambridge or international high school diploma program, they can try to apply for advanced studying credit transfer. So when they start their university study, they don't need to start from 0 credit, but they can already got some credits transferred. But generally speaking, from national school, for example, they will not be required to take a foundation or a pre-university program, but they can start university year right away, year 1, but they will start at 0 credit, which means it's going to take them about 4 years to complete the bachelor. The master is about 1 to 2 years, and we have research and course space. The PhD is about 3 to 5 years. Now, I will not be talking so much about the graduate programs unless if there is interest, you can ask me later on during the Q&A. So for universities in Canada, these are obviously the top areas of study. So areas like business and management, agriculture and forestry, and the STEM, especially computer science, environmental science, engineering, and also the life sciences. Now, I have to note for life science, if you are thinking about medicine, in Canada, students do not study medicine at the undergrad level. So they still need to do life science, so maybe biological science, biomedical, or bio-related studies. And then when they have graduated with that bachelor degree, then they can apply to the Faculty of Medicine in Canada. Although, quick note, not all faculties of medicine in Canada open to international students. Most of them are still reserved for Canadian citizens and permanent residents only. But there are a few, they are open, and because of that, it is very competitive to study medicine, and obviously it takes more years to complete. But generally speaking, these are the highly sought degrees in Canada. I must highlight that Canada is very strong in artificial intelligence, our computer data science and IT, and all the concentrations. So I will not be highlighting each of them, but you can easily review them here. Business commerce management is always popular, even up to now. Whenever we do a survey at each of our fair, the outcome remains consistent that business commerce management is still one of the most popular field of study among Indonesians. Engineering, it's big. Biological, biomedical, health, life science, except medicine, as I said. And nursing are open for international students as well. I've started seeing there are also interests for nurse as well. I think it's like, you only need a few doctors, but you need way more nurses. And, doctors and nurses are paid really well in Canada as well. So that's probably one of the reasons why nursing is picking up as well. And of course, environmental science and sustainability. This is also need to be highlighted that Canada is one of the front runners in sustainable studies. In fact, we have some universities that are already offering sustainability concentration, not only as a what's the word I'm looking at? Not only as a cross study, but it's actually a concentration that they can pursue as a degree. Some of them are already offered at Canadian universities. So environmental science and sustainability is also big. And of course, actuarial science, art design, digital media, education, hospitality, psychology, and so on are also highly sought in Canada. So now what about colleges? So as you can see, colleges are slightly different than universities because they focus more on a shorter, more practical applied programs like certificate, 1 year, diploma, 2 years, advanced diploma, 3 years. Although there is an overlap now with universities, as I've shared in the previous diagram, that there are more and more colleges now offering bachelor degrees, like the universities, and it's also a 4-year degree. And a few have started to offer master programs. But generally speaking, they offer more certificate diploma at post-secondary and graduate level. So what do I mean by that? A lot of time, when we see certificates and diplomas, our immediate thought is, oh, these are for high school students. They finish, they go for certificate or they go for diploma. But in Canada, we actually also offer certificates and diplomas for those that have completed bachelor degrees. And we call them graduate certificates or graduate diploma. It's also 1 year, it's also 2 years, and it's more skill applied focus rather than research or coursework that are normally offered by masters at the university level. So it's ideal for somebody looking to pivot or shift to a different field of study, but they do not want to start from the beginning again, but just want to focus on a specific set of skills. Then they will be looking at these certificate diploma programs. So yes, college education, generally speaking, are more hands-on, and that's why we have huge number of programs that are very practical and work integrated. But even though we have our hands-on and applied side, we also conduct research at college and polytechnics. But most of the research tend to be more applied towards small, medium-sized enterprise, and students can also gain relevant practical experience doing that. So a lot of incubators and also entrepreneurship accelerators offered at these colleges and polytechnics as well. But I've informed you earlier that Canada is very known for the research culture. And it is true, because Canadian industry invests more in higher education R&D than any other industries in the G7 countries. That is that research partnership between the education sector and the private sector. So it shows in this chart in terms of the higher education R&D intensity. So you can see here that our index for the R&D intensity across the G7 countries, we are higher than that. In fact, we are the second highest in the world, just slightly below UK, which I'm sure everyone agrees is very well known for their research culture. So Canadian colleges and universities, they perform a higher rate national research than most OECD countries. And this is very important, not only for those looking for graduate programs or they want to study master or PhD. Even students at undergrad level, they will be able to access a myriad of field of study and research choices that's available at their respective universities or colleges because of this. Now, so we have gone through very quickly about the quality of life, or should I say the Canadian brand, and we have also gone through specifically on the quality of education and also the overview about the education system itself. But at the end of the day, a lot of parents and students these days are looking at what's after that. After the education is done, after the degree is earned, what's next? What's waiting for them? So this is, I think, is very important, and this is what making Canadian education particularly unique. Because right from day one. Canadian education has always been a very clear and direct pathway to career opportunities. Our education programs, which we call the work integrated learning programs, provide workplace exposure, networking opportunities, and practical experience for students during their study. That's why we have co-op programs, we have internship, we have practicum, and we have applied industry placements. And all of these opportunities are available for students in addition to the on-campus work, off-campus work, and so on. Now, the stats are even more mind-boggling. 46%, so nearly 50% of grads in 2020, they all participated in WIL. So one out of every two students, nearly one out of every two students or graduates from Canadian institutions, they have done some work integrated learning programs. Now, out of that, 84% took it not just for, not just because they are interested or they are passionate, but it is a mandatory requirement of the program. So this is how serious Canadian institutions view the importance of this work integrated learning program, that they make it as a mandatory requirement. Now, 70% out of those taking these WIL programs realize that these experiences definitely help them in finding job after graduation. So in addition to this work integrated learning programs, students are still offered the possibilities to work on or off campus. If international students want to work on campus, there is no limit. I need to update this slide a little bit. So for working on campus, there is no limit in terms of the number of hours. But of course, students still need to pay attention on the study, life, and work balance, right? Because we definitely do not want the study to be adversely affected because of the work experience. If an international student chooses to work off campus without additional paperwork or work permit, so just by using the study permit alone, international students can work off campus for up to 24 hours a week. And that's during school semesters. If it's during school break or holidays, then student can work full-time as well, just like during the summer. Now, we will talk a little bit more about these and the PGWP in the next session with the IRCC, with the immigration from the embassy, because they will be able to provide more details on that. But I just want to highlight the importance of exploring these work opportunities, not only for which I think I have to convey that what's important is the network and the exposure, right? That's number one. But of course, we also need to recognize that these experiences also can help financially. And this slide can show you exactly that. These are the minimum hourly wage rates, very updated. This is based on June 1st, 2026, so literally a couple of days ago. And this basically shows the hourly wage, minimum hourly wage across different provinces in Canada. So majority is about $17. So imagine if students do that, like a quick punch on the calculator, $17 times 24 hours a week times 4 weeks a month times 12 months a year, students can get to nearly 20,000 gross salary in a year. So it is definitely something that needs to be recognized as well. So before I move on to the numbers about tuition and living costs, I want to go back a little bit on this co-op program. I understand that right now it's 10 a.m., so I probably only have about 10 minutes left. So I want to take the time to explore this co-op program further. Because among all of the work integrated learning programs, I would say that co-op is probably the most unique, and it's the largest, and Canada has the largest co-op program in the world. So that's why I think it's very important. A lot of Indonesian students end up choosing Canada because they want to take advantage of the co-op programs. So the way co-op program is unique, let's say compared to internship, is because this program allows students multiple work experience rather than just one semester of work as part of graduation requirement, which is usually the case for internship. And maybe they will use it for basis for their own thesis. But in Canada, students do not graduate with a bachelor degree by thesis. So there is no defending thesis in Canada for undergrad. So students will do projects, they will do exams, but there is no thesis. So the need for the work experience is not concentrated only in the final semester before they graduate, but it's actually spread across the years as part of their learning requirements. It's to assist with their learning so that their knowledge and their understanding is not mainly limited, again, in the walls of the classroom, but they will be able to learn it directly from the workplace. And that's why the co-op program is designed in a way that students can do multiple work terms across 4 years, starting the second year. So at least the rule now, the immigration rule now says that students can do up to 50% of these work terms out of their entire study. So in other words, if it's a 4-year degree, students can do work terms up to 2 years. Now, unless it's required, usually students will not go to that extent. But let's say if they just do one work term, one semester every year, and each term is about 4 months long, by the time they graduate, at least they will already have 1 full year work experience, full-time work experience that's related to their field of study. Because when they are doing these work terms, they will not be studying. They will not go to school at all. So they will take a break and they will utilize the work terms to fully immerse to the workplace. Well, they will be like a full-time employee working at a company, at an organization, at an industry, learning more, and also applying what they have learned from their school or from their university or college as well. So I think the best ways to describe how advantageous the co-op program is by looking at these testimonies. Now, believe me, there are a lot more out there, but because of time limitation and just for the sake of showing you different advantages and benefits of co-op, we have handpicked a few Indonesian students that have been successful through the co-op program. And hopefully from here, you will be able to see the full benefits of the co-op program itself. So for example, like Stephen Wijaya, now working in Chicago, USA at the Amazon. And look at these, he studied BBA from 2015 to 2020. And all of these experiences that you see here all are taking place, at least up to here, are all taking place during his study. The last 3 portions are when he has graduated, and maybe he's taking the PGWP program because, but it seems like he has gone to US as well with the Amazon as well. So you'll see this a lot among the co-op students. They have different workplaces, different work positions that they are able to explore during their entire study. So they will not just be working at one company, just doing one thing, but they have very diverse, different places, different positions, different functions that they can explore as they progress through their academic years. Felix Mangundap, software engineer at Even Up in Toronto. He studied computer science 2016 to 2021. And look at that. All of these diverse, incredible experience at different companies, even some of big companies like IBM, Ontario Institute for Cancer Research, and so on, are done during their study years. Cheryl Emanuela, Bachelor of Mathematics, Actuaria, 2016 to 2021. And look at this. Now, it's very interesting if you pay attention to the dates. She graduated in 2021, and her last co-op program is at Deloitte as an actuarial analyst. And look at that. The first job post-graduation for her is also at the same company. And these are cases that I have heard as well from different co-op students, that the co-op terms that they have done end up being the company that hired them once they have graduated, once they have completed. And it shows that networking effect, the early exposure to the company, to the employer that students can take advantage of. Sergio Leonardo at Deloitte, Canada. Again, all the experience there. See here, Sergio also did a co-op term, not the last one, but at the early years, Sergio did a co-op at Deloitte, Canada, and he's now a manager there. Jonathan Nitisastro, same thing. Software engineer, he graduated in 2025. His last internship is as a software engineer at the same company, and now he is a full-time software engineer at Snowflake Toronto. Some end up working, doing some co-ops with the municipal government, like Abraham Warisal, Senior Energy Consultant at City of Toronto. And remember, I mentioned that Canada is very known for the entrepreneurship, and that's why we have people also coming back to Indonesia and become entrepreneurs, like John Marco Rasjit, who is co-founder of Sociola. I'm sure most of the female audience here are aware of this brand. And John Marco is also the board member of Pasar Polis, which is the biggest online insurance platform in Indonesia. Mark Irawan is also the co-founder of a startup called CoLearn, providing education assistance to students. So let's go back about that employability, right? These are very important statistics for you to know, and something that maybe you can share to parents and students as well. Among international students graduated in Canada in 2020, after a study is conducted in 2023, they see that these students are securing employment rate at 88.6%. So very high employment rate. But these are not just typical for universities. In fact, for college grads, because of that relevance to the industry and also their exposure as well, the employment rate is also very high, even higher at 89.6%. So in other words, on average, about 89% graduates, international student graduates from Canadian education institutions are able to find jobs right away. Nearly 9 in 10 international graduates were employed within 3 years. What about the retention rate? What about if we pull it even further? Not just within the 3 years, what about if it's 5 years or 10 years down the road? Now you can see that this is a cross-country study, and you will see that the international graduates retention in Canada is the highest among OECD countries. So for graduate cohorts in 2010, they remain in Canada for the next 5 years. And This is for graduates in 2015 in the next 5 years. And finally, this is 20 graduates graduating in 2010, and then the study look at their status in the next 10 years. So as you can see, across all three study groups, all of them show very high retention rates for international students, at least the highest among OECD countries. And if you are looking at the number of PGWP issued in 2024, you see over the years, we have continued to issue PGWPs. In fact, we reached all-time high in 2023 and only start to decline in 2024, but it is still remain high and it's still above 200,000 PGWPs. And maybe the question is, why? So if this is not obvious already, there is an increasing labor market need in Canada. It's been happening in the recent years, and it will continue to happen at least for another 5 years because of the accelerating aging population and the low birth rate. Our birth rate right now is at 1.26. So even two parents are not replacing their own work generation. So talent shortage in multiple sectors are happening, especially in the areas of healthcare and STEM. So what has been happening in Canada in the past decade is that about 5.2 million of the baby boomers have retired. And in the next 5 years, another 1/3, about 2.7 million more Canadians are going to retire. So this will leave a gap in the workforce that needs to be filled. 20% of Canadians were age 65 plus, retirement age, in 2025. And the projection for the next 5 years, it's going to be about a quarter of the entire population. So that's why the demand for talent is still going to be high. And I think this is very important for international students, especially from Indonesia, to know about what awaits them if they feel that they want to continue to remain in Canada after they finish their study and so on. So I only have about maybe a couple of minutes left because I'm sure Danny from IRCC is probably already here with us. So I'll just be very quick with these next few slides because they are all numbers. If you want, you can screenshot them. You can always look back to that later on. The tuition fee for an international undergrad students at a university level is about 41,000. So this is average. I have to underline that. So in other words, there are universities that offer lower tuition than that, and there are that offer higher than that. But on average, Canadian universities offer their bachelor degree at about 41,000 Canadian dollars per year. College or polytechnic are usually offer lower tuition, ranging from 16 to 35. So this is not average. This is from 16 to 35,000. Is usually the range for the tuition for the same program. Graduate programs are usually cheaper, but more competitive to get in because of the smaller class size. So the tuition for graduate programs at university in Canada is usually around 24,000. But this is not applicable for MBA. Yeah. So for MBA, the tuition is different. It can range from 40, 15, even all the way to 100,000. But for other field of study, it's usually about 24,000. And the college polytechnic, now that they offer graduate certificate, graduate diploma, even master degrees, the range is usually between 18 to 40,000 Canadian dollars. And this is very current because this is based on 2025, 2026 data. What about living costs? Now, when you apply for study permit, they will ask for the cost of living requirements for study permit application, and it is at 23,000 Canadian dollars. So that's an estimate. But of course, it also depends on where you end up studying, the cities in Canada. But as you can see in this map, you will see that Vancouver and Toronto are the two most expensive cities in Canada. But I think the more important observation that I want to share with everyone here, even though Vancouver, Toronto are the most expensive in Canada, if we compare them with other major cities in the US or in the Europe or in the Asia Pacific, you will see that Canada's largest and most expensive cities are still relatively more affordable than many other cities around the world. So just in case if you're wondering, the numbers are showing the ranking of the cost of living of those cities. So the higher the smaller the number, the higher the ranking, the more expensive it is. Okay. I will not be going through this international student application process because this is something that we can definitely explore maybe during Q&A or some other time. But I just want to highlight for counselors that applications are generally concentrated for the fall intake in September. And application for September is usually open 1 year before. So it usually opens in October the previous year, which is why our Study in Canada Fair is usually hosted in October because of that very reason, where a lot of Canadian institutions coming from Canada to Indonesia to recruit students. So application is already open in October, and generally the earliest deadline is in mid-January. That's the earliest, and it's only applicable for a few universities. More universities are usually down several months, maybe around March or April, and some programs will remain open as long as there are still seats available. But pay attention to the underline. The scholarship application deadline can be earlier. So we have to see the difference because we have two kinds of scholarships. The entrance scholarships are usually automatically considered. So as long as the students meet the application deadlines, then they are usually fine because there is no separate application required. And they are usually very academic merit focused. So they'll just be looking at the high school transcripts and the grades. But for larger scholarships, especially involving big amounts or even covering cost of living, for example, they are very competitive, and usually there will be other factors being considered apart from the academic merit, like extracurricular involvement, financial situation, and so on. Because of these, different factors of consideration, usually they will require references and separate application. Now, for these ones, the deadline are usually earlier. So counselors, agents, and students need to pay attention on this. So there is no government scholarship for high school, undergrad, post-secondary programs. They are usually offered directly by universities, colleges, polytechnics. But for graduate programs, apart from the ones offered by the education institutions, you can always go to this link. And this is basically a list of scholarships offered by Government of Canada by citizenship. So you will be able to identify, for example, for Indonesian citizens, what kind of scholarships are available out there from Canada. But of course, the work opportunities that I have discussed and I have described in details previously are also options for sources of funding. But I keep reiterating, do keep in mind that the main advantage of the work opportunities is for learning and networking and exposure to the workplace. But financial will be an additional advantage, but this incentive should not affect the study work-life balance of an international student. All right, that is it for my presentation. You can screenshot this contact if you need to reach out to me. I'm based in Jakarta, but we also have area representatives in Surabaya and in Medan as well. So thank you very much for listening. I will be turning off my slide now. Just final encouragement for people to follow us in our social media, particularly our Instagram. We have really good content that should be useful to share to students, parents, and for general learning and information for most of you.